sports fans, PBnZ Sports Chaos, we're back at you. A quick shout out to my daughter Nicole. Happy birthday today, Nicole Zwicker.
Happy birthday.
I see you're celebrating there, Mr. PB. What do you got in your hand?
Yeah. Also, it happens to be my new son-in-law's birthday, Paul, Rachel's husband's, his birthday today too. So happy birthday, Paul.
Nice.
This is a Terrapin. It's Terrapin Brewery. It's out of Athens, Georgia, and this is the Luau IPA. So it's a very citrusy IPA with passion fruit, orange, and guava. Pretty tasty. It's 6.5%. So I just discovered it and I like it.
Woo, nice. Luau, I love luau. All right, hey, we had an unbelievable week in sports. Yesterday was the culmination of the week with Brittany Griner being brought home from Russia. That was awesome news. All the news talked about it all day long. Sports, news, whatever. Big deal. Congrats to BG and her family. That's awesome. But, I mean, going back to last week, we had Ohio State getting announced to be in the college football playoffs because of USC getting trounced on Friday. Sunday, we had Jimmy G breaking something or other once again. San Fran loses his starting quarterback. But the rookie came in, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. We'll talk about that a little later. Unbelievable. I still can't believe drunk-faced Ryan Day is going to be in the playoffs, but he is. I digress. TB12 had another comeback victory. 3 seconds left in the game. The laziest ever thrown a touchdown. The U.S. got knocked out of the World Cup. So guess what? We get to stop talking about the World Cup. Yay, let's go. And the hot stove went on fire and blew up in baseball. Cy Young Award winner Justin Verlander, what's he, like 90? I didn't even know, but he left the Houston Astros to go to the Mets. Jacob deGrom, the ace from the Mets, leaves them and he goes to the Texas Rangers. By the way, all these guys got like unbelievable contracts. They're getting paid like $39 million a year. It's outrageous. Aaron Judge stayed in New York because he got $40 million a year. But the one we're going to talk about, and this might have set the precedent of that before we get to that, Trey Turner gets $300 million from the Phillies. I don't know what the hell the Phillies were thinking, $300 million of Trey Turner. He's a great little player. Don't get me wrong. $300 million? Give me a break. But to our chagrin, Xander Bogaerts leaves the Red Sox. He goes to the Padres, who had an all-star shortstop, so I don't know what's going on over there. They pay him $280 million for 11 years, PB. I'm just totally blown away. When you heard that, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's been the cornerstone of that franchise, I feel like, for the last 5 years or so. And now,
in theory, you could say 10. I mean, he's been there since 2012 when he came up. He played in the 2013 World Series. They won, right?
Yeah. But I mean, as far as like a high profile, targeted type of player that could sign a, multi-$100 million contract. And here he goes. And the Padres just keep going out. The Padres and the Dodgers are turning into the Red Sox and the Yankees. I mean, they're just spending money like crazy. They gave a ton of money to Fernando Tatis, right, who was injured most of last year. They got Manny Machado, right? They have Bogaerts, and they have someone else I'm leaving out that's making millions and millions.
The right fielder that came over from Washington, Juan Soto.
Juan Soto. Thank you. So there you go. There's 4 guys under huge contracts. They want to go toe to toe with the Dodgers. That's what happens. Do
you think they asked Tatis permission first? Because he's obviously not playing shortstop now. They've already penciled in Bogaerts as the shortstop.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man.
By the way, all right, we're going to talk about these Red Sox. I mean, by the way, they made big news one day later. Get this. For $90 million, they signed a Japanese player. They were the first bidder. There was a 45-day window. They bid it on day one. $90 million for Simi Makasata. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. He's a 29-year-old outfielder. He's 5'8". He's 176. That means he's half the size of you, PB. He can't run. I can't imagine a little guy can't run, but he's not really good. He's a defensive liability in the outfield. He plays the outfield, but he hit 321 the last 3 years. His agent is Scott Boras, who quote unquote said, "We had to take the deal. It was so far outside the norm, I had to say yes to it on day one." Yet we can't pay Bogaerts. What am I missing, Paul? What am I missing, PB? I don't understand this.
Yeah. I don't either. I don't know much about this guy, so I can't make any comments. But
No,
based
but I
on
mean the whole Red Sox mentality right now.
right, right. But just based on his makeup, I would say that I can't believe that they paid that much money for someone like that. Yeah, I don't know. This franchise to me is not. They're not managed well. They're not led well. They're.
Here's the big question: Devers is next up. Are they going to lose him? I mean, I think there's no way he stays.
Why would he want to at this point?
And why would any free agents want to come here anymore either, right? When you see that, if you're a big name free agent, I know they signed Kelsey Jansen the other day, the closer from Atlanta, but he's like 37 years old. They signed Chris Martin, who had a great playoff run 2 years ago for the Dodgers, but he's 36 years old. I mean, we're not getting marquee prime of life players anymore in Boston. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going in the wrong direction.
Hein Bloom has to go. John Henry, if you don't want to pay the money anymore, John, like you said earlier, Paul, we paid the money before to bid with the Yankees. If he doesn't want to pay the money, he's going to sell a team. We can't stay this way anymore. All right. Hey, by the way, we also have fans. Don't forget, we have this one thing to claim: the highest average ticket price in all of baseball, with shitty seats. I mean, I love going to Fenway as much as you do, but the seats suck, right? I mean, you go to Camden Yards, it's a much better experience, and that's been around for 20 years.
Right.
Oh my God. Hey, enough doom and gloom. We got the Celtics, we got the Bruins, the two best teams in their respective leagues. Monty is doing an unbelievable job. He's getting these old guys to play like I've never seen before in my life out of them. I mean, David Krejci came back at, what's he like, 42, 43, 49? I don't know. They're playing so well. And right now, the Celtics versus the field, no one's going to take the field. I mean, they're the best team in the NBA by far. All right, little CFP talk. Georgia got in. Yes, they won. Michigan got in. They deserve to. TCU got in despite a loss, but they beat K-State early in the year. Ohio State got in. We had a lot of back and forth and text messaging this week with some other folks. I give up. Finally, I think it's probably the right thing. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I'm glad TCU got in despite their loss. I thought they'd get in as a 4 and have to face Georgia though in the first round, So I think that's kind of interesting.
A lot of people said the committee did that to avoid the Ohio State-Michigan rematch right away, but according to how they did it from ESPN, who knows all that happens inside the closed room, that was not part of the dialogue ever. I don't know if that's true, but all right, whatever. It's probably the right move. And by the way, Ohio State could give Georgia a game, right?
Yeah.
I will say this before we move on. I saw this week. Vegas said they would take Alabama versus everybody but Georgia, and it would be 3 to 7 points every game, Alabama favorite. Georgia would be a pick'em game. So, but Vegas is not the committee. All right. We got nothing big going on this week except for one game. The one game that I think is really the best rivalry in college football, Army-Navy. You already know, fans, if you've been watching the show, Roger Staubach went to Navy. I'm always going to pick Navy. 2.5-point favorite. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going Army. I'll take the points, 2.5 with Army. Yeah. And
G money. Well. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right, man. Hey, Heisman pick on Saturday. 4 quarter. This is no longer anything but a quarterback pick, right?
I don't think so.
So the favorite right now is Caleb Williams there from USC. Is that your thought?
Yeah, I mean, who else is going to get? I mean, CJ Stroud will get some votes.
I will say this: as a longtime college football fan, a player of college football, the guy that most epitomizes college football, in my opinion, is Max Duggan. And he's also one of the finalists. He's not going to get the award, but man, the way he put his team on his shoulders in the championship game, unbelievable, right?
He can run the ball. He's such good vision. He's going to be a good pro. I think he's going to be a good pro.
I hope so. I mean, I have a feeling he's going to end up like Johnny Manziel and Baker and Doug Flutie, but maybe not. Hopefully not. Hopefully he does prove me wrong. All right. No fall play this week. We already just picked Army Navy. We're going to do bowl games next week. Let's get into football, though. Last night was an interesting night. Baker Mayfield comes back from the dead, basically, or back from a 7-hour flight where he read the playbook apparently the whole time there. Didn't start the game, pulls off a 13-point comeback to win. Get that on a 98-yard drive with 1:45 left and no timeouts.
Yeah, unbelievable. I wish I'd stayed awake. I had fallen asleep in about the very tail end of the third quarter when Vegas kicked the field goal to go up 16-3. And I was out after that. And I was like fighting to stay awake and I couldn't. But I would have been something to see. I saw it all the highlights this morning. So I know how the last few drives went and so forth. But there was some penalties in there that helped them out.
One really stupid one. I mean, you knocked the ball out of Baker's hands when he's been sacked after he's standing back up, giving it to the ref. Come on.
Yeah. It's lack of discipline. It goes back to the coaching,
By the way, I know you're not a Vegas fan. You don't think you think they're garbage, but if they won that game, they would have been their fourth in a row, and they conceivably could win the next 3 out of 5 easily, looking at the schedule. So I think they could have made the playoffs, but they lost that game. It's all over, in my opinion, at this point.
And it's kind of what they did. They said, I think last year, they said that they had the same exact record last year as they did this year at this point. Yep. So and they went on that run and made the playoffs last year, and they're like, this team is playing hot. I mean, Josh Jacobs right now is playing out of his mind, right? Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams. Derek Carr is the wink link on that team. I'm sorry, he's just not a top tier quarterback in this league.
Well, I will just say this, PB. We could say that, but Vegas. I'm reading this. Four games this year, they've been ahead by 13 points or more in the second half and lost. That's not Derek Carr. He doesn't play defense.
Wow.
So,
speaking of 13 points, what a segue this would be. I saw this posted by Schefter. We talked about the comeback Brady made, right? So it's got to be one of our takeaways from last week, right?
Yes. Let's talk about takeaways.
I can't believe this statistic. Adam Schefter posted. I tried to research the heck out of it, and I think it's accurate. Tom Brady is 0-37 when trailing by 13 or more points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was like, he's never come back from 13 points or more down in the third, and he's like 1 and whatever in the playoffs. The only time he's ever did in his whole entire career was the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl.
The Falcons game, correct.
And I was like, are you kidding me? And I was thinking back to that Browns game in like 2013 when they scored and they had to get an onside kick and they scored again. But one of those scores was a field goal to get it within like 8 or something. And then whatever they did, I went back and looked, and it was, sure enough, it was a 12-point lead. They had a 12-point deficit in that game.
Right.
Of course, I couldn't pick other random games. That was the only one that stood on my head. But can you believe that he was 0-37 when down by 13? I feel like this guy's come back from tons of games down that much. You know what I mean? So I just found that to be interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's why I brought it up earlier. He made that comeback. That was his 45th game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, which breaks Peyton Manning's record. So,
yeah.
All right, what else did you take away from last week? Do you have any other good takes?
Quickly, I got the Niners over the Dolphins was an impressive win for the Niners, and
especially because Jimmy G went down like 2 minutes into the game.
It was first or second drive. He was down.
Right.
Brock Purdy came in. Purdy looked solid. He looked like he had command of that offense. He knew the plays. He knew what he was doing. He made good throws. I really like that. So it keeps my hopes up for the Niners because I really think right now it's them in Dallas. They're like the class of the NFC. I know you say the Eagles should be in that equation, but not to me. And what about the Dolphins? I mean, are they going to run into these good teams and just fall apart like they did? So that puts a question mark on what we consider to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC, right?
Agreed.
Other takeaway, Washington and the New York Giants. That tie was pretty epic in a way because that's really going to decide which one of those teams probably in the end makes the final wild card or wild card spot.
I forget, but a number of years ago, an ESPN guy, it might have been Chris Berman, he actually said ties work out great when it comes to the playoff seedings. And I'm like, really? Tie? Because everybody says ties suck. And it's happened that way for a couple of years now. He's right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a chance both these teams could make it, depending on how they run out the rest of the year. But they got to play each other again a week from Sunday, so we'll see how that goes. It would be funny if they tied again and they were both had 2 ties.
Oh yeah.
That would be classic. What else? Cincinnati. They own Kansas City. They own them.
That was what I was going to say. Their third win in the calendar year. So in 2022, Joe Burrow and the Bengals have beat Kansas City 3 times.
That is,
I mean, I would not have fathomed that ever.
that is absolutely crazy, right? Because they played towards the end of the regular season, then they played again in the playoffs. And
correct.
Oh my God. It's just that's crazy. So Cincinnati should be very, very afraid of Cincinnati. They're probably wanting to play Buffalo again before the AFC Championship game. Or I should say, they probably want to not be playing, Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game.
Right.
Who they draw in the playoffs? Who are they going to draw in the playoffs? They probably want Buffalo. Maybe someone else can knock off Cincinnati. I don't know, but that's got to be mentally in their head, right?
Well, what they need is Cincinnati to win their division and not be a wild card, and then maybe they avoid them.
Right, which since he should be able to do, especially with Lamar being out. What else was a takeaway? I thought that the Cowboys are dominant. Like I said, to me, the class of the NFC right now is Dallas and San Francisco, hands down. Dallas got another game with Philadelphia. They can win that game. If Philadelphia can drop another one, which I think they will, Dallas should win that division. Put Philly in a wild card situation, send them on the road in their first game against like a Minnesota or someone, and they're one and done. That's what I predict for the Eagles this year. Baltimore's probably going to be in a similar situation. They did not look good at all. They beat the worst team in football by 1 point, 10-9, and that came down to the final drive. Without Lamar, I'm not sure this team's going to be.
Well, they beat Denver, who's not the worst team. Houston Texans are the worst team.
Okay, yeah, we'll give you that one. Yeah, second worst. So I know you like Baltimore, but I'm concerned about Baltimore. I think since he wins this division, same thing. Baltimore still probably gets in with a wild card, but they're going to have to go on the road and they're going to play Kansas City or somebody like that in the first round, and they're going to get smoked. And
Baltimore has a favorable schedule. They have no one left with a 500 record or above.
Yeah. Well, if they do win the division, then they'll get through. They'll win a game.
But you're going to be shocked because we're going to do picks in a minute, and Baltimore's in one of our picks. We're about to pick 6 games.
Let me ask you this, though. Baltimore does win that division. Miami gets a wild card. Say Miami has to go into Baltimore in the first round. Miami owns Baltimore. They killed them last year. They beat them again this year.
I'm going to say this. Weather affects Miami. And if they go into Baltimore, the weather's not as bad as New England or Buffalo, but it's pretty damn bad in January. And I don't think Tua and those other boys are going to hold up well in that weather. Trust me. I just don't. Miami can't go on the road in the north. They're in debt if they go on the road in the north. That's all I'm going to say in the winter. So unless it's an indoor stadium, but there's no indoor stadiums in Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, right? Cincinnati even has a tough stadium. Kansas City has a tough stadium in the winter, right? So
yeah, good point.
All right, let's do some picks. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Speaking of Cleveland and Cincy anyways. You already talked about Good Joe beating the KC 3 times this calendar year. He's playing at Cleveland. Did you know this little DYK? He's 0-4 in his career against Cleveland. He's been sacked 17 times. He's never had a 300-yard game.
Wow. And did you see what Cleveland did last week on defense? Granted, they were playing Houston, but still, they really are can come at you, right? With that defense. So this game could be closer than people think. I want to see what Deshaun Watson shows up. If he got his sea legs underneath him. He made some pretty bad throws last week.
He was horrible last week. Horrible.
He looked horrible. But I'm hoping that was rust. And he shook it off, and he's going to come back and do a little bit better. And the other thing is too, he could afford to not have good. His defense was playing out of their mind, and they were playing the Houston Texans. This week, they're playing Cincinnati. Cincinnati's going to score points, and their defense isn't going to play as well, or they're not going to score 3 touchdowns like they did last week. So they're either going to get killed like 38-3, or Deshaun Watson's going to have to score points. He's going to have to get some touchdowns. I still think it's high scoring. I still think Cincinnati wins. probably gets into the 30s. I'm going to say 31-17, 31-20, something like that.
G Money is Cincinnati. I guess Cincinnati, it's not going to be that big of a scoring game. I believe Cleveland does what they normally do to Joe Burrow, but he finds a way. They maybe win 21-17 or something like that.
All right.
All right. Vikings go to Detroit. This one blew my mind. Vikings are Detroit's a 2-point favorite against a 10-2 team, and Detroit's 5-7. But they're a 2-point favorite against the Vikings. What do you think? Is the glass slipper falling off?
The reason for that is because I think all 10 of Minnesota's wins are less than one score.
They don't, correct.
They don't blow teams away. Granted, their 2 losses, legit losses, right? They lost to
Philly and the Cowboys.
And they lost to Dallas. So they lost to 2 really, really good teams. They beat Buffalo. So, I mean, they're beating some good teams too. But Detroit's playing. They're balling right now. And Swift is back. He's healthy. Minnesota's defense can certainly be exploited. We've seen that happen. Mac Jones threw for 380 yards against them. So
yes,
I think Goff has a field day. I think he scored a lot of points. I think Minnesota scores a lot of points too. But I'm going to give the edge to the home team. I think Detroit wins this by a field goal. I'm going to take the Lions.
Ooh, just like G Money. I agree. There's going to be points scored. At the end of the day, Detroit's defense. Don't forget. The Pats of all teams ran roughshod all over Detroit. I think the Vikings do the same thing with better talent than the Pats have. So Vikings win this game.
Okay.
All right. What is probably we don't talk about this a lot, but this might be the best rivalry in football because these teams absolutely hate each other. Baltimore goes to Pittsburgh. You already talked about Baltimore's problems going to this game. Pittsburgh's on a little bit of a roll. What do you think?
Yeah, and this could be a little bit of a trap for Baltimore, but
Lamar's out. Tyler Huntley's playing.
I like Huntley. I think Huntley's he's kind of like Lamar in a way. He's got good legs. He's run for, you look at his stats from last year. He played 5 or 6 games. One of those games he ran for 2 touchdowns and threw 2 touchdowns. He's always in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s yards in terms of rushing yards. He's not going to, chuck the ball downfield like crazy all day long, but you don't have to when you have guys like Mark Andrews, right? So I think Baltimore, I think it's close, but in the end, Baltimore wins this one.
Ooh, I like your thinking. You know what? I'm going against the grain. I'm taking Pittsburgh in this game. It's at Pittsburgh, and I think Huntley. Don't forget, last year Huntley played at Pittsburgh and lost, so G Money is Pittsburgh as well. I'm going Pittsburgh.
All right. Yeah,
by the way, I know you said Pittsburgh is hot trash early in the year. Pittsburgh actually has an outside shove. They win this game, they conceivably can win 4 out of the next 5 games after that. The only game that's tough, they get Baltimore one more time. So,
yeah. And I think I had them at 5-12, maybe 6-11, and they already are at 5 wins. So unless they lose out, I'm not winning that under over.
No.
All
right, here's one. This is going to be controversial. Pats go to Arizona. I know what we should be thinking. I know what I should be thinking, but Monday Night Football game. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, Arizona just hasn't impressed me this year. I think Belichick can figure out that whole system that they're running. I think Connor is going to play, but their running game is kind of weak. Hopkins
Kyler's playing though.
He is, yes.
Historically, running quarterbacks beat the Patriots.
They do historically, and when you have, Hopkins as well as Marquise Brown is back, right? I'm not sure Rondale Moore's status as of right now for as far as the slot receiver goes, but I still think I just have this feeling Arizona's got the worst. Like I think they're the second to worst team in scoring defense, and they're like 7th worst in the NFL in pass defense yards allowed. So I think this is the one time when Mac Jones can do what he did against Minnesota to Arizona and score some points. And I think they can control the clock. I think they can run the ball, move the ball. I'm going to take New England in a close one.
G Money is as well. I got Arizona. I think my boy Kyler Murray looks like the Heisman Trophy winner once again. Runs all over the field, throws a couple touchdowns, runs 2 touchdowns.
Wow, we're only the same on Cincinnati so far. All right.
Here's another one that has a little homegrown roots to it. TB12. He heads out to San Fran to play Brock Purdy in his first start ever. Quarterback starting the first game ever against Tom Brady. I have never won ever.
Yeah, it's actually the largest age differential in an NFL start for quarterbacks ever in the history of the NFL. So
Yep.
that tells you something right there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, I said the class of the NFC is, I didn't mention Tampa Bay in any of those times. I kept saying class of the NFC, class of the NFC, San Francisco and Dallas. Could Brock Purdy fall flat on his face? Yes, that could happen.
Belichick has never lost to a quarterback starting his first game.
Way more likely that Brock Purdy falls apart than Tom Brady falls apart.
I mean, Brady as well. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Belichick.
Yeah, way more likely. But I still think San Francisco's defense is just solid. They have the offensive weapons with Christian McCaffrey in there, and Debo and Ayuk, and and Kill. I can't pick against San Francisco right now. It's at San Francisco. I'm taking San Francisco. I know you're going TB, right?
I'm not. That's why I got him here. I just want to let him know, Tommy. We love you. We appreciate everything you did, but it ain't happening. All right.
Okay. All right. So
I'm going to San Fran as well. By the way, G Money though, his heart is still apparently torn. He's going with TB12.
Okay.
All right, let's finish this one off quick. We're running up against the clock. We got your Dolphins going to LA to play the Chargers. They stayed out there. I heard they stayed there, right? They didn't come home after being out in San Fran last week. This is a big game because Tua, was I the right pick? Herbert, no, you weren't the right pick. I should have been picked ahead of you. What do you think?
It is in that sense. It's also big for the Patriots, given their jockeying for wild card right now. I'm gonna go with my theory. Miami, disappointing loss last week on the road in San Francisco. I think they bounce back and figure it out. The Chargers defense is very, very weak. I'm taking the Dolphins in this one.
PB, I'm with you, and for one reason. The Chargers are the worst team at man-to-man defense. I'm sorry. Tua is the best at man-to-man defense. The Chargers play man-to-man exclusively. I mean, I just don't see that changing. They're not going to change up on the fly and play a zone at this point in time. So I don't see how it happens. I mean, unless Herbert goes absolutely off because he's upset that he got picked after little Tua. But I'm with you. All right, man. We're coming up on our time. Good show. We'll see what happens. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too, my man.